Hey everybody, and welcome to Hell is for Children. This show is on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2100 hours Central European Time. And my name is Geerte Frenken, and this show is all about the topic of protective mothers and their children. So what's a protective mother? A protective mother tries to protect her child or children from their abusive fathers by many means necessary, which is an uphill battle in today's global corrupt family court system that thrives on paternal entitlement. And I want to start today with an announcement about an event by Mothers of Lost Children that will take place September 13 and September 14 in Washington, D.C. And since that's coming up so soon, I want to just share my screen so you can all find out where you can get the information about this, which is over here on Facebook. You can just type in Mothers of Lost Children March in DC and lobbying. If you type that in over here, it'll bring you to this page on Facebook, and you can see here that the Mothers of Lost Children are coming together this Monday and Tuesday in Washington, D.C., and all the details about this march and this lobbying event are over here. So that is what I wanted to share, and that will bring me to my introduction to today's guest, which is protective mother Marre Wosten, who lost custody of her 6 children to her abusive ex due to false allegations of domestic violence. And her ex cut off all contact between her and her kids and even caused her to get jailed when she texted, "I love you," to her 18-year-old son when he graduated high school. So quite an outrageous story again today. Welcome, Marre, to Hell's for Children.
Hi.
Hi. So why don't we start with you sharing how you came to be a protective mother. So bring us back to the beginning. You were a stay-at-home mom. Things were going well, and what happened?
I was beginning to gain more independence. My youngest child had started kindergarten a couple of years before, and I had taken a part-time job, and using that money I was earning from it to take vacations with my children that my ex was unwilling to attend, which was unusual. We've been together 20 years. So, but he became very jealous of that. Never asked the children if they had a good time, when I took them skiing or camping or on a sailing trip, whatever I did with them. It was more like he didn't even want to know what happened. So there was a jealousy factor there. And then on top of that, I was very financially controlled. So I wouldn't have been able to do those things because I didn't have the financial resources, even though we were living an upper middle class lifestyle, having a big house, new cars. The kids were in private schools. But I only had enough money to get groceries. I didn't have any credit cards in my name, which should have been a red flag for me, but I was very trusting and naive at the time. And just said, we need multiple times, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I said, we need to work on family finances. We're both, in our mid-40s, and we need to plan for the future. I had no idea what he was doing. All I could see that he was buying extravagant things for himself constantly. And I just needed to be more grounded in, what our future was financially, especially since we were responsible for 6 children. And he became irate. He's an alcoholic. He's been treated for alcoholism. So I've had to ride that wave the entire time we were married, and would become very abusive of me if I'd confront him. And I got brave, and I knew it would be a big blow up. And he said, I said to him, this is going to be a divorce if, we can't work this out in a fair way, sort of, to suggest, this is how it should be done in a marriage. And he said, "That's fine. I'm taking the kids and I'm going to leave you in the gutter." And I laughed at the time. I thought, well, it can't be that way because, I've been married to you for over 20 years and I've sacrificed having the career, and it just doesn't work that way in divorce. I thought naively everything was 50-50. I didn't have any divorced friends. We were living in a very Christian community where families stayed together. And I also don't have any of my family that has undergone divorce, very stable relationships. So, but he already had a plan. He knew what he was doing at the moment that I even mentioned it. And a long summer began of gaslighting me, telling me I was crazy, telling the kids I was crazy, and doing what he could to try and make me angry. And I'm a very calm, centered person. I practice yoga every day, and was pretty much used to running the whole household on my own in a very calm, organized manner, and he was doing his best to stir it up. And yeah, so that's how it began. It began by him trying to get me institutionalized. So he drafted my oldest children into having me stay home and not go to yoga one evening, telling them that mom was crazy and she needed to get help. And they came to get me, to my surprise, while I was watching a movie with my daughters. They had obviously been told by him, you need to stay home and, your mom needs to be taken away. Because when the sheriff showed up, the girls weren't surprised. They said, Mom, you need to go with them. And I said, go where? They said, oh, Grady Hospital. And I didn't know anything about that. I knew there was a burn unit. I didn't know anything about psychiatric unit. I've never had, mental health problems. And so that's what it turned out when I was once in the sheriff car, which I just went along with them. And I went in the sheriff car and got there. And right away, the psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists there, multiple people there that interviewed me and observed me, they couldn't see anything wrong. So they released me. Within a week, he had a temporary protective order against me, which I came home from picking my kids up from their charter school and walked up to the door, and I was served. I couldn't go back into my house. And that was the last day I saw my older children. So that's been over 3 years now. And it's the last time I was with my younger children. I've only had brief visits with them for 4 or 5 hours. Every other week. That happened the first year since then. I actually have not seen my younger 3 children in December 2014 is the last time I saw them. So yeah, I've been cut off from my kids. There's no communication, no contact. Yeah.
So let's go back to when he somehow got you hauled off by the cops the first time. How did he do that?
He was able to convince not only my children, but at that time he drafted my parents into it by calling them up and making up stories that I was acting crazy. And my parents didn't know, but they were worried about the children. And he said, I'm fearful for the children. So they were manipulated by him. They knew immediately after everything started to go down what was going on, but they were part of his plan.
Well, let me share my screen here and show the audience some pictures of you with your kids, because when I look at this, I don't see fearful kids. I see a really happy family, and I see a very together group of children with there's nothing going on here. So did he have any type of report, or what is this based on? Can the cops just come in and accept these types of false allegations? How does that work?
He had to go before a judge, and he convinced my father, who's in his 80s, and he suffers from slight dementia, that my father needed to go with him to the judge. It was for the kids' best interest, to get a court order to have me evaluated, because the kids might be in danger. And my dad, being a good grandparent, he went along with it. He didn't know But this was like lining things up for a divorce, that he would get everything and leave me in the gutter, as my ex put it. But so my father and him got the judges to take me to a psychiatric ward.
Oh my God! And
Yeah.
so, what happened at the psychiatric ward? They let you go, right? There was nothing going
Yeah,
on.
well, I was under observation for 24 hours, and they didn't see anything wrong with me. I knew there was nothing wrong with me, but I thought, well, okay, well, just go along with this, and maybe this will prove, because he'd been telling me as well as the children this whole time I was crazy, you know.
This is what narcissists do, and not just narcissists, but this is what's happening to women for thousands of years. If women start to assert themselves and take their power back, especially within a marriage, we get accused of being crazy and dangerous, and not. We got burned at the stake for making herbal teas only a few hundred years ago, or put down with electroshocks for speaking our minds, not even 100 years ago, and it's still happening in some countries. And so that's why I'm like thinking, okay, so you've had the 24-hour observation and nothing's coming out of that. So how was he able to still convince a judge that you were an unfit mother if there's no solid evidence of anything being wrong with you?
Well, the evidence wasn't looked at because the lawyers that he hired lied, and but within a week of that, I was given the protective order, so I didn't have time to think or act.
So he got a protective order on you, or you got one on him?
No, he got one on me. After I got out of the psychiatric ward, I contacted a few different in Atlanta women's abuse groups to say, I'm being abused. It's psychological. It's emotional. What can you do? And they said, there's nothing we can do. We understand your situation, but unless he hits you and unless there's a police report, there's nothing you could do. He said, the only thing, you can go get a protective order on him. And I thought at that time, I could never do that to my children. Humiliate their father in front of the children would be a horrible thing to do, but he had no problem doing it to me because he did that within a week. And he did it based on the fact that I was crazy, said and convinced the kids I was crazy.
Yeah, so it's all based on hearsay and brainwashing and manipulation, and I think the domestic violence agencies that you contacted are very, very wrong in the way they handled you and your case. They could take a page out of what they're doing in the United Kingdom. They're actually implemented a new law where this type of brainwashing and manipulation and harassment, because that's what it is, it's harassment, is actually illegal now. So any type of psychological and emotional abuse is made to be illegal. And this is what needs to happen all over the world, because the type of abuse that was being done to you and is still being done to you is you can't see it. It's not physical. And that's why it's actually even more malicious, because how do you prove what's going on? This is one of the reasons why I advise all protective mothers out there to record conversations, save all emails, and then back up all the evidence that you have of this type of behavior. Back it up, not just on an external hard drive or a USB stick, but actually put it all on a Swiss encrypted cloud server, and then give the username and password to someone that you really, really trust. In case anything happens to you, then your friend will be able to still release all the information and the evidence of stalking and harassment and libel and slander and this type of stuff. So, for all the mothers who are watching right now who are not quite in your situation yet, but maybe heading there, start protecting yourself by gathering this evidence and dating all the evidence and writing a story with exactly when everything happened. So when your case goes to court, you can show all of, you can show the pattern of the harassment. But what happens, just like in your case, is that this type of evidence, in most cases, is suppressed because we're dealing with family courts, and family court bases their decisions on opinion and not on evidence, as we all know. I've been doing this show now since February, and in every single guest that I've had on, the same thing has happened. And the courts almost always side with the abusive fathers. So let's look at that. I have, for the folks who are watching and think that I'm making this stuff up, no, this has all been researched, and actually, let me show the research because right here on this website by the Leadership Council, you can actually go here to gender bias in court. There is all kinds of academic research here. It's a scroll-a-thon. Scroll through it. The numbers are that 82% of abusive fathers, if they fight for custody, they get it. Okay? That's a large number. That is the gross majority of cases. The abusive father gets full custody. Now let's talk about your particular trial. And here's another article by the Brothers Network, Why Abusive Men Sue for Child Custody and Often Get It. Here again, it states here that 80 to 90% of the men who sue for to try to get custody, they get it, and 70% of them are abusive. So a good conclusion here, that means that a frightening number of mothers who love their children are having to watch these children raised by the very men that society told them to leave because they were being abused. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is very important, because there's this myth, right, that we raise false allegations of abuse, but it's been proven in research that only 1 to 2% of women who claim abuse are lying, while 15% of the men are actually the ones who are lying. So just to get the record straight for anyone who thinks that this is that this is not happening, this is definitely happening. And you can go here to my website and go to Mommy Side and see cases that are currently already public. You can click on all these links and we'll bring you to situations of protective mothers just like you, who have all gone through this same script. But I want to, before we get back to this, I want to get back to your story and ask you what you did when the evidence was suppressed in court. Did you have an attorney at this time?
So my first legal trial was, of course, because of the family violence, which was what he asked in the protective order. And I did not have any money. I had already been cut off 3 months before this happened, and I was going to the store with my kids holding a credit card, and they would pay and not be allowed to give me the card. They were given specific orders by their father: don't give the card to your mother. So they were already starting to lose respect for me and sort of stand back and control me a bit through him. They were very nervous when they go to the store with me, very tense. And it broke my heart. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped. And so when this went down, of course, I had no access to money to get a lawyer. I have a very good dear friend of mine, and she's a lawyer, but she is an immigration lawyer. And she offered to help me and go to court and stand for me. Well, she knew nothing about what was going on in the courtroom, and the way his lawyer, he already had his lawyer pre-selected. It's a high asset lawyer, so only deals with people who have money, who have assets to protect. which for him, I mean, that was the most important thing. It really wasn't about the kids. He wanted to protect his family money. He's the only living child. And that was his main concern. So he was already using this lawyer to manipulate the whole divorce. And she just tore me up. And I had no real chance to speak or defend myself. I did not have, obviously, the type of lawyer he had. My friend did the best she could, but she was overwhelmed. And it didn't go well. I had to sign a permanent protective order at the end of that. I didn't know what was going on, and I also didn't have any real legal advice about what was going on. My friend certainly didn't know. I've been told since then, oh, you shouldn't have signed the order. Well, I was pretty much under the understanding that I didn't have a choice at the time. So that's what happened. And then when he filed for divorce immediately, at that court date, he said to the judge, I'm filing for divorce now. And I thought, oh, now the judge is going to see, you know, it's a trap. It's a setup. But none of that came into play.
Well, let's look at this, because I think it's really interesting that in your story, as you're telling it, the point where your ex started feeling threatened was when you started asserting yourself about the finances. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of fear in his mind about this financial thing. Mm-hmm. And as long as you played along with the coercive control through the finances, everything was fine. But as soon as you started mentioning, like, we need to, you know, make sure that the finances are arranged for the children as they get older, and all of this stuff, it became an issue for him to see you as an enemy. Yeah. And then what you enter is a court situation that is completely unequal, because he has controlled the finances for 20 years. He cuts you off because he has that power, because that is how he has controlled the family. Then he uses that money to get a really good attorney, knowing full well that you don't have the finances to get a good family court attorney that is equal to the job. Exactly. So that the whole situation starts unfair. And I want the viewers to really see how this goes down, because that inequality right there, that is the gender bias right there from the first minute you set foot in the courtroom. And this goes for a lot of protective mothers, also for protective mothers who are actually working jobs while raising the kids, because you have to spend a lot of time raising your children, right? So the amount of time that a man can spend on his career, right, is going to be more, and therefore the guys usually have more money, right? So exactly. And just writing the motions and looking at all the court paperwork that comes at you is much harder to do when you have the kids at home running around and you're taking care of the household and possibly working, and it's completely an unequal situation that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, the family court, doesn't only not look at that. They love family conflicts, right? Because this is how all these attorneys and mediators and guardian ad litems and evaluators, they're all making tons of money. They can set their own outrageous hourly fees. Right. And they want to keep the conflict going as long as the kids are under 18, right? Because absolutely. If your kids are 5 years old, they're going to be making money for another 13 years by keeping the conflict going. So it's a scam. It's a downright scam. And what's happening in your case is being falsely accused of having some kind of psychological issue going on, is what is used in most of the cases. Yeah. Nice. So I just wanted to point that out, and it's so unfair. It's so unfair. I mean, how are you going to have the same problem? How am I going to, pro se litigant from another country, right? and then like going and doing a hearing over the phone. And I have to learn California law from Europe to
Yeah.
protect my daughter. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
And
ridiculous.
I've been approaching lawyers for 3 years since this went down, and nobody will represent me for less than a $15,000 retainer. Well, I hadn't worked for 21 years. What sort of work do you think I can get? I'm a 50-year-old woman, and I know how to cook, and I know how to organize the household. So I took a job in childcare, which I did great at. My coworkers thought I did great. I've got great recommendations. I was happy there. But it doesn't pay. I mean, I was barely getting by. I think I made less than $10,000 last year. So I was living below the poverty line. And I
Yeah.
have been for the past 3 years. And then I'm expected to come up with a lawyer because he keeps charging more allegations against me. So that's how I lost the visitation. He made up stories that the children were being abused by me while they did a visit with me at my house for a few hours. Then all of a sudden I had to be supervised. It just went downhill.
Yeah.
And
This is how
I
they do
still
it.
don't have a lawyer. Still don't have a lawyer to this day because
Yeah.
nobody will represent me. There's no pro se. And in the state of Georgia where I live, there's also no free legal help or court-appointed attorney for civil cases.
Yeah.
So I never stood a chance to start with. These are all things his lawyers were very aware of from the start, which is why they were able to strategize this whole thing.
Yep. I want the audience to realize how that goes down. I mean, for me, when I caught my cases in Marin County, California, and when I called the legal aid office, they tell me that there's a conflict of interest. That's not possible for a legal aid office, but that's what they're telling me. That this is how these guys will, maneuver the situation in such a way that you don't have equal access to the court, basically, because there's no equal representation. But there's another really important issue that you're bringing up, because here you have been a stay-at-home mom, so you have devoted your life to raising your children, to taking care of them, to helping them become strong, beautiful human beings, as we've seen in the pictures we've just shared. And then that gets used against you, right? Because you've sacrificed your societal career by being choosing to be a stay-at-home mom, which I personally think is a more important job than any other job out there. Raising children is like the most important job on the planet. They're the next generation who need to nurture the earth and make sure that we're doing the right thing with each other here as we're evolving as humanity. Yeah. Our jobs as mothers, we are psychologists, we are taxi drivers, we are cooks, right? We are educators, and we work 24/7, no vacation, right? So by itself, being a mom should be a paid job. If it was a paid job, we'd be making, $250,000 a year, right? Now that would be fair.
Going into a divorce. I thought, the judge is just going to see I sacrificed and everything's going to be 50-50. I had no idea that this could even happen.
Motherhood is not appreciated and not respected whatsoever in today's age, and it hasn't been for many, many centuries. And then when you get into a situation with a sociopath like this, everything that you've sacrificed for your children is used against you, because now you don't have a resume, right? Because we all know we need resumes to get work, and you need degrees to get into the job market. So here you are in huge setback, not just in court, but in society as well. And then that gets used against you. Well, she can't make enough money, so she's not the fit parent. It's like, excuse me, how is this fair on any level? Every level it's unfair. But interesting though, you went into you started working in child care. So
I love children, I love child development, and I was with a Montessori system. I had wonderful families and beautiful children, and I was happy there. That was despite everything that was going on outside of there, I'd go to work and I would enjoy my job.
And that was your expertise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And society considered you being good at that, and they allowed you to do your work, and there was no one saying, Marre can't work because she's crazy, right?
Right. Well, because there was no proof of it. Yeah.
Well,
So,
you weren't. Everyone saw that you were good with the kids,
yeah. Yeah.
but here there's a man that screams she's not capable of being a mom, but you are capable of being a child care provider for others. You
And I
see?
was capable of being a mom for 23 years, and then all of a sudden he said, I'm not. And you see pictures of my daughter. Maybe you have that one graduating with high honors from high school.
I don't think I have that particular picture, but
Yeah, but that's my oldest child. It's like, and that was me. I raised her. Her father was busy when she was young. He was never there. He was doing other things when she got older. I don't want to take the credit. She did all the hard work. She had the conviction, and I'm proud of her. But I think I can take a little credit for her not being a screwed up person. I think she's a good person and has a good heart. Unfortunately, now she's been brainwashed and then probably intimidated by her father. She doesn't want to take up contact with me, and it's heart-wrenching.
well, let's go back.
That's just my oldest one.
Let's go back to where you are in the story. You're in trial. You're there with your friend who's graciously and lovingly trying to help you in this awful situation, but is not familiar with the family court dynamics. So you ended up losing custody, I take it, at that trial?
Right off the bat, custody was given to him, and then he filed for divorce immediately, and I was given very supervised visitation. There was a little window where it opened up for maybe 2 months that I could get unsupervised, and then I had rented a small house about an hour and a half from where they were because they're in the metro area, and I found out a whole house. I was very proud of myself that I could rent, and bought all stuff at the thrift store, at Goodwill, furniture, fun things, books for the kids to do, and it was in a nice neighborhood, and it was also in a very nice school district. So I had everything lined up for my children, for them to come back to me. I thought, people said it's just a matter of time. Justice will be served. I have a lot of friends, a lot of supporters who know my situation, who have been in my home, who knew my marital dynamics. And it's wonderful how those people are supporting me, but they can't change the justice system. So, yeah.
So you were at this little place now, and you had a little window of time of unsupervised visitation, and then how did it get switched to supervised?
He made more false allegations that I was abusing the kids, and that was accepted. He's got a very powerful, convincing, persuasive attorney. You use whatever words you like, and yeah, of course. Then I was not able to see the kids anymore. And then that time, a year and a half had passed. It was finally time to sign off on the divorce. And it was December 2014. I was given nothing in the divorce because of the protective order. The judge gave him the house, the kids. He had hidden all the assets way before the divorce because he had planned this all. Because suddenly he was poor, and I had to pay him child support, of course, And what else can I say? I haven't seen my kids since then. So almost 2 years ago, I have not seen my youngest 3 kids because he's refused visitation. He also stopped paying the meager amount of alimony the judge said he should pay me for a year and a half.
Well, let's backtrack though, because he's claiming all these false allegations, right? I mean, it's interesting to me because there's no evidence of any of this abuse that he's claiming, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And did CPS ever get involved?
Not that I know of. No.
So, it would be very interesting to see the motions that he filed and the nonsense that this judge signed off on, because it's all based on hearsay. And this is, another, it's very important to point out, because when protective mothers lose custody of their kids, the general public says, well, I thought mothers always get the custody of the kids, and there must be something wrong with you, right? So it reinforces the nonsense, false allegations and the rumors that have been spread. And had this been a real judge would have actually looked at, okay, what's in front of me? And because anyone can yell anything, right? And this is what these fathers' rights groups teach each other. It's like, you just start throwing mud, dude. Just start throwing mud. You just tell that judge that your ex is crazy and dangerous, and right? I mean, my ex says I'm a schizophrenic, drug-addicted sex worker. Yeah, man, that'll work, Anything that will, maybe one of those issues will stick to the wall, or because in the end, the judge is basing his or her decisions on opinion. It has nothing to do with actual evidence. This is why family courts like a bogus circus, as far as I'm concerned. Now let's talk about hiding those assets. And I'll share my screen here for a second. So I'm sharing my screen here. If you go to my Free Jasmine from Court-Ordered Abduction, I have a post here where if you click on this, it'll take you to the hidden assets of wealthy people. And this might be helpful for you, Marre. You could click on this and see if the name of your ex-husband will come up in this database. This is where, your ex, or possibly judges, attorneys, anyone who is, receiving kickbacks or hiding money, evading taxes, well, in Panama, the Panama Papers that were released by WikiLeaks, that database is now online, and you can, if you click on this post, you can actually type in the name of your ex or of the judges and attorneys involved in your case. Now, let's say that you see the name of your ex in this database. All you do is take a screenshot of that and then just send it to the IRS. You can do that in two ways. You can report suspected tax fraud anonymously or with your name. There's two ways if you click on this link. You can also be a whistleblower informant, meaning that you actually get a financial reward for being a whistleblower. So, because we want to catch these people. These people are criminals. They're inflicting human rights violations, and we need to get them. Yeah. In any case, I wanted to mention that. So now you're a year and a half. It's a year and a half later, right?
Yeah.
And your children are now, they can only see you supervised, correct?
Yep. He already has his girlfriend living at the house and taking care of my kids full time. I don't know who this person is. I still don't. And we were not even divorced yet. She was living there 6 months divorced before the divorce. This never came out in court. Yeah, he's never been under the microscope for anything. It's amazing to me. And I've been here working. I was working 3 part-time jobs. I went to design school for architecture, but I thought, I learned how to sew. I'll just do clothing design. And I was repurposing vintage fabrics and making dresses and starting little charity fashion shows here in the small town that I live in, getting involved with that. And working other jobs, babysitting here and there, anything where I could make a few dollars to survive, and had the house. And it's just astonishing that was never even brought into court, how hard I worked to pull things together to make a good place for my children. Yeah.
So during the supervised visitation, I don't know how it works in the state of Georgia, but I know in California there's real strict regulations about recording. Like the supervisor has to take notes
Yeah.
of the visitation. Is that what the supervisor did in your case?
I didn't have a court-appointed supervisor. For some reason, his attorney outlined that they wanted my father to be the supervisor, and my parents live about 30 minutes away. And my father said, okay, fine. So it didn't actually cost me or him anything to do those visits. But I think the picture that the lawyer wanted to paint for the judge was I was crazy and my parents needed to supervise me. You know, since he had already coerced my father to go along to the judge that I needed to be evaluated because the kids were in danger. Well, at this point, my father already knew the game because I'd shown him multiple articles that I found online about this sort of silver bullet divorce. And they had the big picture. So they, they're like, okay, fine, we'll do the supervised. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's also important to point out that most of these supervisors are not court appointed. They go through some, 3-day training, if that. And they know nothing about personality disorders like sociopathy or narcissism or coercive control or emotional or psychological abuse. These people have no idea what they're getting into. And that's often also orchestrated by the attorneys of the fathers, right? So, but he got somehow he whittled away now on the supervised visitation too.
Yeah,
correct?
There was a hearing sort of to divide things up that the state requires in Georgia. What do you call it? A separation hearing before you go to trial, or to try and avoid the divorce going to trial. And from that, that was the only little tiny window of I got something out of this. I was finally not having to do the supervised. So that was the only win for me. But it didn't last very long.
How long did it last?
It never included an overnight. I mean, I've never had an overnight visit with my kids. So I think it was from July until October. And he'd just blown the whistle so many times about stupid things that either were exaggerations or completely made up, that suddenly I was back on restriction, like I was dangerous. But at that point, I would have had to use a court-appointed supervisor. But that never happened, because as soon as I signed the divorce, he just shut down all lines of communication and said, nope, you can't see the kids. He was in full control once the divorce was signed. And there was nothing I could do about it. I started scrambling for lawyers like crazy. I said, look, I just signed this divorce and this doesn't make any sense. And, the lawyers were just like, well, I need a $15,000 retainer. Oh, he's got that lawyer, $20,000. Some of them were like, oh, I don't like her. She's very difficult. I heard that so often from lawyers in Atlanta. They know her. She has a reputation. She's difficult. Your chances of winning against her are small. Well, all these egos of these lawyers, they don't want to look bad in court, so they don't even want to go against her. They'll go take an easier case than mine. Plus, I have no money, so they don't want to do it pro bono or do it on, I would say, well, his family has money. We could sue them for abuse. No, that's too complicated, and especially with the lawyer he has, you're probably never going to get that far anyway. So I've never really had any positive feedback.
Yeah, and these are all really lame excuses too of these attorneys. I've run into the same thing. Like they'll say, like, well, the chance of winning is, this happened in the Netherlands. Someone said that to me, well, the chance of winning is small, and I was like, that's not an argument for not taking on a case.
Yeah, or for protecting children. It's like, and I have had lawyers say, just get on with your life. Well, the children are my life. Yeah, really. And I'm worried about them because I know he's got personality disorder. He was diagnosed when we were, years ago, and he never did anything about it. So, and now I had the time to educate myself on what it was, and I realized everything about this disorder that he was saying about me was actually true about him. He was reflecting it onto me. And I was wondering where he was getting all these stories from that he was making up. Like I was walking around at night with pots and pans, and He would say things like to the kids, lock your doors at night because your mom is dangerous. He was scaring the shit out of my kids. Don't eat your dinner if home cooked meal. He would say, just get in the car. We'll just get some fast food or something, So there I make a dinner for 8 people every night. And he's saying to the kids, don't eat it. Don't eat it. Just completely crazy stuff. And,
so interestingly enough, so he's the one who got diagnosed, whereas you have never been diagnosed.
no,
I'm going to take a wild guess, and he's been diagnosed with narcissism. I'm going to assume.
I would hope so.
Let's get. I'm going to share my screen here for a second and take you to this site, the True Love Scam. This is how such personality disorders play out often in these types of relationships, and what you can do about it. How to end it with a sociopath. Obviously, for us. Since we have children with them, it's extremely difficult, but for those mothers who are still at the point where they have to get out of a relationship like the one you're describing and like the one I've been through, there are some really good points here when you want to get out. For example, how to be careful with your information. Remove all of the following to a safe location, right? Passports, social security cards and numbers, birth certificates, marriage certificates, mortgage papers, right? Car registration. Like I said, you need to have all this and make sure it's in a safe place. Same as all the evidence you've been gathering, all the phone calls you have recorded, all the emails that you've saved. You need to put all this in a safe space, scan it, back it up on a encrypted Swiss cloud server, have all this stuff in a safe place and get out, because exactly as what's been happening to you, they will use the bank accounts, the credit cards to cut you off, and that means that you cannot get an attorney. All of a sudden you have not only lost your kids, now you've lost your money. You're tossed out of your house because he's got the better attorney, so he's got the house and the kids and the money and the credit cards and everything, and you got nothing, which is ridiculous. These are gross human rights violations, and the courts, like I said, they love it. So for those who are still in this, this is an excellent website to go to see how you can do all this behind the scenes before you make your move. So you have everything backed up. And I want to add one thing to this. Some of the moms contact me and they say, my ex has got information out of my emails, and how is this possible? This happened to me too. My ex hacked my bank account and my email account. And the way they do that is they actually install spyware on your computer and on your cell phone, with which the keystrokes that you're putting in are logged. And this way they know your username, they know your password, they know everything that you're communicating to lawyers or to friends, right? You have to be extremely careful. In order to get around that, you need to check your computer and your cell phone for spyware and remove it. The other thing that I advise moms is to get a tablet, like a cheap one, and buy it with cash. Don't register it. And then you're going to use, once you have your tablet and it's not registered, then you're going to make a new email account. And I'm going to share my screen here. You're going to make a Proton mail account. This is the type of account that cannot be hacked or tracked. Every email can be tracked by going into the IP address of the subject, not this email. This email account is safe. So I advise all the protective mothers out there to make a Proton mail account, but you need to only access it on a tablet that you bought with cash and that does not have your name on it. So there's no spyware on it, it's clean, and then the password, the username and password that you're going to use for your Proton Mail account cannot be hacked or tracked either. So these are ways to be safe when you're dealing with a sociopath, a malignant narcissist, like the one we're dealing with. These are extremely dangerous people. Their ultimate goal is to not just sever the mother-child bond, but they would love it if we would just die, you know. And so this is the overall goal for us, is to keep breathing, right? One breath at a time, one day at a time, and rebuild your life in a safe way so they cannot keep on attacking and destroying. Because let's go to the part of your story where you're now working at the Montessori school, and what happens there?
So I was starting my second year working, and it had been, well, we have to go back to what happened over the summer with my son. Yeah, can we see?
Yep, absolutely.
My number 3 child, my son, one of the people who had signed the no contact orders, I thought, oh, I'd heard from other friends who were in, I'd met more people in divorce recently, and said, you know, once your children are 18, graduated high school, then, you know, they can stay with you whenever they want, they can come and go, and you're no longer over the control of set visitation times. And I just got really excited thinking about that. So I saw that his number was still on my phone. I didn't know it was still current, but I gave him a phone call. And I said, "Are you there?" And he said, "Who is this?" And I said, "This is Mom." And he hung up right away. He was scared, obviously, you know. So that broke my heart for like a day and a half. And I thought, well, I'm going to send him a text. So I sent him a text with little hearts. And I said, "I love you." And after that, I followed it up with, this is my address where I'm living now. I'm very happy here. I'd love to see you anytime. And I went on a little bit about, you know, what I thought he was dealing with his father, because I felt he's over 18. He's an adult. You know, I'm going to tell him the truth. He can look it up. He can digest it. He can do what he wants with it. But it's better than him not knowing anything, or him just being convinced of something that his father had told him was true. So apparently in the protective order, it did not expire when he turned 18, graduated high school. It extended for about another half year. Well, I don't sit there and look through those papers nonstop because it causes me extreme anxiety, and I wasn't thinking about that. So it was an honest mistake. But as a result of that, he was able to send police here, and I live about 80 miles away from where they are. Police to the town that I live in, have me arrested, handcuffed, which was what you probably show that, and put in jail for 2 weeks without any what you call it, having to pay the bond, without bond, yeah. So I sat into jail, pretty horrific conditions, pretty primitive, Fulton County, downtown Atlanta jail. My fellow inmates were very nice to me, so I did not have a horrible experience, although the way I thought they treated everybody was like animals. But at least I had, you know, a sisterhood there. But I did spend 2 weeks there for what he was considered aggravated stalking, and then went to the bond hearing, and I had to pay $3,000 for the bond, and pretty much close to that, a lawyer that my parents had hired for helping me get out of jail. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to get out, because his lawyer was ready to fight it to keep me in jail for the aggravated stalking. So yeah, so I was right away $6,000 in debt. And now I have to go further with legal proceedings that have been thrown at me. So
Well, let's
that, what I want to say was the daycare or the child care. I lost my job because if you've been in jail you can't, or if you have any sort of arrest, you can't work with children. So now I'm currently unemployed. So
Aggravated stalking for texting your son, I love you, and this is my address, and I would love it if you finally hear my side of the story.
yeah, or just be brave enough so we can have a, conversation again about anything. I hadn't seen him in 3 years now.
You have nothing to apologize for. You are in your every human right to talk to your son, and any judge who says, or any person who says that you can't talk to your child is out of their mind.
Yeah.
And they can hear it right here on Hell's for Children. They're out of their minds. These are gross human rights violations. Every child has the right to talk to his or her mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anytime.
Yeah. That's just
unless you are an extremely, if you've had attempted murder on you. I mean, no, let's turn that around. I've had guests on my show whose exes were convicted murderers and gotten full custody of the children. Here you are, you've never committed any crime, and you're now charged with aggravated stalking. Let's talk about the judge who signed off on that. What is his or her name?
That when I got put in prison,
Yeah.
I don't actually know the name because that was just a judge within the court. But what happened when they first brought me in, I was very overwhelmed. I thought, why am I here? I'm here because I sent I love you to my son. So when I went into the courtroom after being in a holding cell all night with no place to sleep, he said, He fired off all this legal stuff at me, and they were doing one prisoner after the other, and then it was my turn. And he said, do you understand? And I said, no, I don't understand, hoping he would explain to me what was going on. And they said, no bond. He threw the hammer down. He was just impatient with me. But he's the one who posed the question. It was like a setup. Otherwise I probably could have gotten out on a bond. But then I had to sit 2 weeks in jail before I would have another hearing to set bond. So the whole thing was ridiculous. And I don't remember the name of that judge, but he was ridiculous. And then when I had the bond hearing, I had Judge Gail Tucson. She was very fair. His side was trying to throw at me that I should stay in jail because of posts that I'd made on Facebook, and that it was upsetting the children that I was posting pictures of my own children on Facebook, And then he made up elaborate stories like I've been threatening his new wife and leaving guns out. Now, I'm not even somebody who can hold a gun. He tried many times because he collected guns, and I just don't like it. And he would go to firing ranges for fun and all that. And I went clay hunting with him once, where you shoot these artificial birds made out of clay. And I hated it. It was like 15 years ago. I said, I don't want to hold a gun again. So he made up the story that I was threatening his wife and leaving guns on her car seat. So she's terrified now too. So he's using the coercive control on her because now she's afraid that I'm this person that he's, painted a picture of. So she's living in fear. She's leaning into him like, oh, your ex-wife is fearful, and probably helping him, keeping my kids even more isolated so I can't contact them. So it just goes on and on, the coercive control. It's just crazy.
And it's all spun together with lies and bullshit. And let's get to the Facebook post. This is like another ridiculous thing. So you're supposed to go to jail because you had a picture of your kids on Facebook. Well, if we're going to do that, we can jail 90% of the world because I think all of us are posting pictures of our kids online. And if that's a crime, I wish you all good luck there in the United States with your prison system. Come on.
Cited my First Amendment rights. She shot him down. She said that's her First Amendment right. She could post anything she wants.
Right on. Excellent. Well, applause for that judge.
Yeah, exactly. Because not a whole lot of judges will do that. So maybe they're getting smarter. I don't know. But
Well, they know that they will be outed here on Hell is for Children. And while we're at that topic, let's bring up the database of all the moms that are retaliated against just like you by being thrown in jail for the most ridiculous reasons. And that's over here on my freejasmine.com website, and you just go here to jailed and it'll bring you to this database with these are all ridiculous arrests and imprisonments and incarcerations. With the last one that I heard of was a mom, and she checked off the wrong box on a form in family court, and she was jailed. She's still in jail. She was jailed in February with a $750,000 bond. All right? I want the audience to know this. These are really gross human rights violations. See, you are over here. So people, when they're watching, if you want to get more information about Marre's case, if you click on this link here, it will bring you to a post that the Women's Coalition has posted about your case. So you can also go to the Women's Coalition Facebook page and scroll to July 16th and see here the story about this ridiculous felony aggravated stalking charge. I mean, I'm outraged. I'm absolutely outraged when I see this. I don't know what these people are thinking. You're treated like you are the terrorist, while actually you are dealing with a domestic terrorist, and that's your ex, and that is the person who they should be going after for doing this to you and your kids. These are not just human rights violations. This is gross child abuse on your children. They're being made afraid of you for no reason. Now they think, oh, my mom's has gone to jail, so something's wrong with her, right?
yeah.
And everyone's thinking this now. You even lost your job, so now you've lost your kids, your home, your job. I mean, this is like a true psychopath, this your ex. And he needs to undergo, in my opinion, a full forensic psychiatric investigation.
Yeah, I think so too. But without a lawyer, I can't push for anything. All I can do is stand there.
Right. Well, this is one of the reasons why we have the show, because we're going to share the hell out of this link once it's recorded and put on YouTube by our producer. And we're going to try and get you an attorney who will take this on, because, you know, we need to sue the people that are responsible for this situation. We need to file complaints against the judges and attorneys involved in your case. And we need to get your children help, especially the younger ones, obviously, because
Yes.
how many children are still with him at this point?
3 to 4. I don't know if I know my oldest 2 daughters are not living there because one's married and one's in college. And I don't know if my 18-year-old went to college or not because there's been no contact. But definitely the 3 youngest, an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 17-year-old who's a junior. So he has 2 more years. And they've all been taken out of the school system and are being homeschooled. Well, homeschooling is great. I have a lot of friends who homeschool, and it's wonderful, but I don't know if there's any qualifications in the home for doing that. I know it's part of his program for isolating the kids socially, because I'm sure there was a lot of pressures from neighbors that were my friends that are just astounded by what he has gotten away with. And they see my kids in the schools every day and they ask how I am. And my kids don't know, you know, he had to pull them out of that environment. So now they're completely isolated.
Yeah, and this is like the one of the tactics of a sociopath is to isolate the victim. And I want to use this opportunity for people who know Marre, right now that are watching, I would like you to take responsibility for the situation and the opportunities that might arise to approach the children or help the children and help Marre. Because if society only looks on without doing anything, then the perpetrator will continue to keep getting away with this. And every day these children are being brainwashed. They're being fed nonsense about their mother. And those are human rights violations. And if you're just standing by and not doing anything about that, you are actually participating in the abuse. So this goes for the school, the doctor, the dentist, the ballet class, whatever, wherever they are, the people that are aware of what's going on need to take responsibility and address this appropriately.
Yep.
Now,
and that it's hard. I have enormous empathy for my friends that are feeling it but feel helpless. I understand. I'm not angry with anybody.
No, I think it's a societal issue, like often the schools won't participate, and, the people that kind of know what's going on, they won't say anything. They don't want to get in the middle of it. It's nonsense. Just speak your mind. I want people to just speak their mind and say how they feel and what they think about it, and hold these perpetrators accountable for their actions. I mean, these are child abusers. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let these bullies get away with it. These are people who bully their ex-wives and their children through the judicial system. And we need to publicly out them and hold them accountable. And we need to isolate them, if anything. Yeah. So let's talk about how you haven't been able to have contact. Let's talk about the children and the effect this has had on your kids. Because right now we've talked about the divorce, and we've talked about what your ex has done. We've talked about the incarceration, the ridiculous felony aggravated stalking charges. Well, let's talk about the kids from beginning to end. When they first were made afraid of you, that must have been a gradual process, or how did that go down?
Well, as they got older, he would be disrespectful to me in front of them and laugh it off. To him, it was just like, your mom takes it, she's whatever, So he was already belittling me in the eyes of the children. And then my parents, who lived close by, they moved here from Massachusetts to be closer to the kids. He would gradually start belittling them more and more. If they wanted to do something with them, with the children, he would often discourage the children. Oh, you don't want to do that. That won't be, he had an opinion about everything. And if it had anything to do with anybody else's ideas but his own, then it was negative, which is very narcissistic and typical. But
how did that manifest itself in the relationship that you had with your kids?
I would just perk my chin up and do my own thing and be my own person. I became more independent and stronger in a lot of ways, and during that, I was very active. I taught the kids how to downhill ski because that was something I had done growing up. I taught the kids how to kayak. We went on bike trips together. We went on mountain hiking trips together, and he never wanted to come. So that was fine. I was like Maria von Trapp. I got all these beautiful children, and we did fun adventures together. And, there was never any word from him about it. No, certainly not a compliment, but there was just no acknowledgement of it.
So there must have been like a constant brainwashing program that he implemented on them to start making them afraid of you, or something like that?
Yeah, once, like I said, the straw broke in the camel's back, and, I had suggested divorce, and he was actually already planning divorce, so I was finally picking on to the red flags. Then he began actively telling them poisonous things, and the money was cut off right away. So if mom had to go out to the grocery store, which was just about every other day to get reload on groceries, I would have to ask one of the children to go up to his room that he kept locked. Actually, it used to be our bedroom, but since everything went crazy, he kept the door locked, and he would spend all his time in there, and he would call the children in. So they would go in there, get the credit card, and we'd go on. And obviously that they'd been given a talking to about, don't let mom have it. So, I mean, in their minds, there was already something going on.
Yeah.
And that didn't include the younger ones, because at that point, my younger ones were 8, 10, and 13. He really pulled the older 3 in hard, because they were 15, 16, and 21 at that time. And he really used and manipulated my oldest 3 children, who at that time probably had the most damage from it. At this point, I think they all equally have as much damage. And for me, that's my biggest grief, is just that the manipulation, and these kids are going to figure it out, and they're going to need lots of therapy and lots of recovery, because they've been living a lie, and they've probably been told. And I've consulted with, psychologists and therapists about this. Undoubtedly, they've been told, I don't want them, I don't love them, I gave them up, I walked away from them. I don't want to see them. That's why I never call. There's going to be a justification for everything, in his eyes, that he can convince them of. So at some point they will, think for themselves. But right now I know they've been controlled by material things, especially the older ones, because they, they're in college or whatever. They need money. And the only way to get it is, they better respect dad's word. So as long as that sick bond continues to exist, I continue to not exist.
Well, I have somewhat good news for you, because I did this show with Jill Jones Soderman, and she is the executive director of the Foundation of the Child Victims of Family Court. And what I'll do here is I will share my screen here with you. And for all the moms that are watching right now, there's another show that I did right here. It's on my timeline, but it's also archived on the CCN media archives on their website. That show is completely on this topic. It's 2 hours long, a conversation with Dr. Jill Jones Soderman, and she is a psychoanalyst and a clinical supervisor and a therapist and an expert on this particular topic. And when I interviewed her, she said that there is definitely hope. I know what you and I are going through, because I am in the same situation. I haven't seen my daughter I haven't had any contact in 14 or 15 months or so. But eventually, however brainwashed the children are, they're going to seek us out. Because eventually they want to become whole again. They have been cut off from us, and they're going to, just like any child who's been raised in a foster family, eventually they're going to go and find us. That is not to say that I don't think that we shouldn't seek contact. I think what you did with when your son graduated high school is totally appropriate. It's totally what I would have done. Any normal mom in this situation would have said, oh, they're 18. I can finally have contact, right? So, and they're adults. I mean, I don't even understand how any of this has been possible, the felony aggravated stalking. But let's say if your children are watching this show right now, what would you like to tell them?
That it's safe here. I'm in a good place. I have a great community. I have a wonderful body of friends here that believe in me and understand what I'm going through, and that's helped give me a lot of strength and help me enjoy life. But they do know that a big part of my life is missing, and they do understand how much I'm suffering, and they would be so happy for me to see us reunited again. So it's not just me anymore. I've like drawn a whole community into my life. So they're not just coming back to me, they're coming back to everybody who's thinking about them.
Yeah, and their grandparents too, right? I mean, and
My grandparents also, yep, they've moved here to the town I'm living in to be close by so that we're ready to be here for them. And there's no feelings of anger. We know what happened completely. We're just here with receptive hearts. That's it.
that's
We're just
beautiful.
people who have lives, and my parents want my children to be part of their lives again. They're the most important thing for them. They moved to Georgia 14 years ago to be closer to the kids, all 6 grandkids, because I'm the only one that had kids in the family, and all their other families in Holland. So we're together. We're still here. We still do Sinterklaas. Anytime they want to come and join us for that is great. So nothing, I mean, we'll all be a little bit older and we'll all have different experiences we could share. I think it'll be a really exciting time to reconnect. I'm looking forward to it. I think we've all suffered too. We need to heal together from being apart. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a chance, I mean, I don't know your kids, but if they are watching this show now live or the YouTube archived version, my message to you is please think for yourself. Go back into your own memory. Was it really that dangerous and scary with your mom? I mean, come on. You went skiing and kayaking and going on wonderful trips. I mean, let's look at the beautiful pictures of you all together here, and tell me that you felt like you were in danger. Come on now. You need to think for yourself and not allow anyone to get into your memory bank and change the memories, right? The healing is what's most important. The healing and the healing will come. I promise that it will happen. It is a matter of time, and this is what the hardest thing is for us and for your parents and for any aunts and uncles and cousins and other family that is drawn into this, and classmates and friends, right? Because it has a huge impact. It's not just mom who's being cut off. There's an entire group of people who's been cut out. And, you know, if the kids are watching, make up your own mind. There is no judge in the world that can tell you that you're not allowed to see your mother and your grandparents and your uncles and aunts and cousins and friends. It's nonsense. What the judge is doing is illegal. It is unlawful. It goes against your basic human rights. You know, and I want the children to know this, and I want to encourage them to be empowered enough to get over the fear of dad. You know, get over the fear of the bully who's telling them what they can and cannot do, what they can and cannot say. And it's not a process that can be rushed. I mean, the brainwashing and overcoming the fear is a process. And that's what that show with Jill Jones Soderman was about. And she explains that once your children will become parents themselves is when they really come out of the brainwashing, usually, in most cases. Because then they start really thinking back, right? Then the need really arises because they go into the role that you had. So there is hope, but what we are going through is extremely, extremely painful. And the people that are inflicting this on us are, it's not an illness. It's a disorder. I respect how forgiving you are. I look at it the same way. I don't think that these fathers have any idea what they're doing. And we need to somehow get to the point that we can say, they don't, forgive them, God. They don't know what they're doing, right? That doesn't mean we are capable maybe of forgiving them, but it's their fate. It's their karma. It's the energy that they put out into this life on the planet. We are the victims of that, but we can go on with our own lives and reshape it, which is what you have done. It's what I'm doing. So when our kids reconnect with us, they see strong women who are empowered, take good care of ourselves, and are there for that healing journey to start, right? It will be wonderful. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
You know, and for the fathers that are doing this stuff, there is not much hope for them. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about these brain disorders, which is what they suffer from, and these scans that can be done to prevent all of this this tragedy in the first place. So, in my humble opinion, I think that if there is a custody situation arising where one parent is showing this type of extreme behavior for having their ex arrested with felony aggravated stalking charges for texting "I love you" to their child, they need to have their brain scanned for abnormalities. These scans are available. This should be implemented. Antisocial personality disorders, sociopathy can be detected in the brain. The same goes for pedophilia. It can be spotted in the brain. Same goes for narcissism. These disorders can be detected. Basically, what they can have been able to note is that the area that has electrical activity in the region of empathy in the brain is not active in these particular individuals. And if a brain scan, if an MRI scan in a situation like yours and like mine would show that there is no electrical activity in the empathy center of the brain, then that should weigh heavily in any custody type of, right?
Exactly, yes.
We have the tools.
People handed the children. They were never good nurturers to start with. That's why we were such nurturers, and that's why it hurts us so much to have this happen. It's yes. Everything's backwards. Yeah, it's just backwards.
Well, but the individual that has no empathy knows that you do. So right. They are very well aware of the pain that they are inflicting. They are very well aware of it. If anything, I would say the empath narcissism dynamics has everything to do with the narcissist realizing I'm missing something. I'm having something essential that she does have, and I'm jealous of it. It's like being in the kindergarten playground and they want that toy, but they can't have it, so now they're just going to bully you and fight with you and destroy you because you have that beautiful thing that they don't have, right?
Yeah, I had a great relationship with my children. He couldn't tolerate that. Yeah.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that unfolds in the entire family, in your entire circle of friends. It affects relationships you've had with prior friends, current friends, relationships that you might currently be in. It affects so much the stone that they drop in the water, right? The pebble they drop in the water has huge rings of impact. It impacts the children. It impacts their ability to form healthy relationships in the future. Trust issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sad for them. That's where they're going to need a lot of help. Hopefully the sooner the better.
Yes, we need to get these cases wrapped up as soon as possible.
That's what keeps me going every day. That's what gets me out of bed every morning, gets me to go to yoga, gets me to eat healthy, gets me to, do good things for people who need things, is that my kids need to be rescued.
Well, let's talk about how we can help. Let's talk about that, because you have a court case coming up. And I gotta go scroll here to the announcement of the show. Let me share my screen here and bring you to the show announcement here. If you scroll down a little bit, you see here that coming Wednesday, September 14th, Marre has to appear in court regarding these false allegations. And you can help her by emailing the presiding judge, Jane Barwick, at megan.miller@fultoncountyga.gov, and stating that you are protesting the discrimination and human rights violations in Marre Wosten's case, which caused her to lose her 6 children and all contact with them. If you've watched this show, the hour and a half we've been on, and you've heard this story, and you are as outraged as I am, I'm going to ask that you please send a very polite and respectful email to the presiding judge in this case, and let her know, let Judge Barwick know, that there are currently 2 million protective mothers in the United States alone, that there are an estimated 6 million of us all over the world dealing with these types of domestic terrorists, and that this has nothing to do with Marre. Marre is the victim here and not the perpetrator. And to, make sure that justice is done and that this outrageous situation is reversed immediately. And for, really, what needs to happen is that you receive financial damages for what's been inflicted upon you and your children. And I'm hoping that an attorney is watching. I'm hoping that there is an attorney who says, okay, I'm going to sue all the individuals that have participated in this family tragedy and that have caused it to unfold. And I'll work pro bono. And I'll take a promissory note from Marre that when the millions of dollars roll in, that we'll make an arrangement for payment then.
Absolutely. That's not about the money for me. It's about my kids.
Right. The big issue for us is to find attorneys who are willing to do that. I've had attorneys tell me, oh, you just need to evict your 82-year-old mother out of her house and then sell her house and then give that money to me. It's like, excuse me? Are you out of your mind? So now I've lost my kid, my house, my career, and now you want me to kick my 82-year-old mother into the streets? I don't think so. We need lawyers with a heart. So we need an attorney with a heart who will go in like a surgeon and do an operation on the cancer that has spread, the so-called cancer that has spread in your family. And I'm saying that as a metaphor, of course. And somehow we also need to brainstorm what we can do to get these attorneys to take on a case like this, Do we need to start writing grants, getting grant money to get these attorneys started on our cases so they have that $10,000, $20,000 retainer, and then once we sue them all, we get the financial damages. We take on new cases, something like that.
Yeah. And, I feel very personally, otherwise it's just modern day slavery of women. That's the position I've been put in. I'm like an indentured servant who's been thrown out into the streets because I'm done. Didn't need me anymore. And he's not responsible for me. He doesn't have to, give me anything. I got nothing in the divorce. It's criminal. It's criminal what's been done to me, and without cause. All he had to do was make up this lie that he felt scared and threatened in family violence court, and he's very good at making up stories. He's very, very convincing of people. He's a salesperson. That's his job. He does it every day. He convinces people to buy things maybe that they don't want or need. Just so who's going to be more convincing on the stand? Or me, who's very honest, Say, yeah, 50-50 is fine with me, but if he's going in and attacking me and saying I'm worthless, then yeah, who's going to win?
Yeah, and it's not even about winning, it's about what's best for the children, and they have a right to a relationship with you and with your parents and any aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews and nieces and friends and the whole 9 yards. Yeah. They have that right.
Yep.
What's a family court judge, some stranger who's coming in, who doesn't even look at the evidence and then bases their custody decision on an opinion of you? Like what? They don't like the color of your hair?
Yeah.
They believe some kind of snake oil story about you, that you're crazy and dangerous.
And nobody else is saying it except the person who wants to divorce me. I mean, it's like, of course he's not going to say anything nice. Of course he's going to lie if he's a pathological liar. That's easy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that these judges know full well what's happening, and the attorneys as well. From what I'm seeing with all the thousands of mothers that I know and all the interviews that I've done and all the stories that I've collected, is that this is a pattern and it unfolds like a script. All our stories are the same. But your particular story is outrageous. There's some more of those outrageous stories that I've had on the show. Like I told you, the convicted murderer who beat someone to death with his bare hands and then got full custody after he came out of jail. It's like, or Davida Sanchez, who almost died in jail. Oh my God, there's some real gross human rights violations going on in the United States, but this is also happening across the globe. The fathers' rights movement that started out as possibly a very legitimate movement in the 1980s has been infiltrated by some real malignant, nasty individuals who have taught your ex and my ex how to use the system in a horrific way, and with the ultimate aim to it's a seek and destroy mission. It's a seek and destroy mission. But we're here on Hells for Children to let them know that we will not be destroyed, and that we are breathing on, and that we are fighting on, and that we are exposing the individuals that are doing this. I think you're very brave for going public. So I want to thank you for that. I want to commend you for that courage, and also really motivate the other protective mothers out there who are afraid to come forward. Share your story. It's extremely important, because if we're all going to just huddle in these together in these little secret and closed Facebook groups, we're just preaching to the choir, It's like, yeah, I had a shitty day. Yeah, me too. I mean, how's that going to change it?
Yeah.
I've been screwed in family courts. Yeah, me too. No, let's get this out to the world, because the larger public doesn't know that we're out there with 2 million in the United States alone. And this is why I started doing the show. We need to shine the light on the insanity. And while I have a few minutes left on the show, I can show you how to do that. Because one of the reasons one of the ways to do it is to create a website about your case and do it in a safe way, so you cannot be retaliated against. This is the story about my particular case, and what I did was I put the story in here as a summary, probably about 5 or 6 pages, but I also have on this link a 2-page summary and a 1-page summary, and then I have the entire story here per year. You can click on each year and really follow the story almost like a novel, and it has evidence as well. So let's go, for example, to 2014, if it'll load, because the bandwidth is always a little bit slow when we're live. But let's say we go to 2014. You see here when I have an official letter that I'm sharing, a piece of evidence, I've blocked out the names, the name of my daughter. I blocked out any identifying information for her, and I throughout the entire website I also blocked the name of my ex-husband by his last name, unless of course a journalist or a representative mentions his name. Then there's nothing I can do about that. That's their choices to make that name public. But this is a way to actually bring your entire story out and show the individuals that are inflicting the human rights violations, because we need to out these people, like here in my case, attorney Kelly Ryder. We need to out them, so we warn other protective mothers to stay away from those type of attorneys. You see here, I block out the last name and I block out the email addresses. So once you have a website like this with your story, you can then also create blog posts, like you see here on the right. They get archived. So there's an entire in-depth, detailed version of the story that you can actually follow along in the archives. What's really important is that you have your story together in multiple different versions. As you see here on my website, I have anything from a 1-page summary to a full-on version. When you want to come on my show as a guest, you need to submit to me a 1-page version of your story. See, I have here a 2-page media statement. That's good too. A 2-page statement, because if you're able to do that, and you can come on my show anonymously under a pseudonym, I'll block out I'll pixelate the faces of the kids in the pictures. You cannot be retaliated against, because you're not using your real name. You're not showing any real names. All you're doing is naming the names of the individuals involved. And you have the right to do that, to out the officials, people, in their official functions, like attorneys and mediators and judges. You have that right. So once you've created your website and your posts, you can then go to your Facebook page, and you can share posts on your feed, right? And this is, like, for example, here I got one, this is a blog post that I created this week, right? It's showing over here. And then I start pushing this through social media. So people are aware of your case, and you need to do this regularly. So people go like, oh yeah, that's Marre's case, right? Oh yeah, that's Geerte's case. That's that girl, Jasmine, So over time, people, they know your case, they know what's going on, and this creates interest, it creates pressure, because now you're on my show, right? You had the courage to come on my show, but you also had the courage to go public and share it with the Women's Coalition, and then the Women's Coalition can share your story, and this is how you go into the media. And now I'm hoping that we'll have thousands of other moms and hopefully also men out there who will approach the judge about your Wednesday, September 14th court hearing. What can come out of this court hearing?
Well, I was the one who initiated the motions because visitation was denied and alimony stopped pretty quickly after divorce. So it took me a while to figure out what I needed to do. So I was told to file 2 motions. I thought immediately, no, I don't want to visit my kids. I want full custody. I want what's right. And I was told time and time again, I have to do one piece, one step at a time. So the most you can do is file the motion for visitation. So that was actually filed back in March, and he's managed to avoid being served for several months and had to reschedule a court date a couple times he got served, and then his lawyer postponed it, and now we're up to September 14th. Now I'm asking for a continuance as of the day before yesterday because I thought by now I should be able to find a lawyer. I've been on the phone Monday to Friday all day long on the internet, going out to different lawyers, and this is just in the city of Atlanta, and I haven't got a single one yet who's willing to represent me. And I have a relative who's given me money recently, and they still don't want to represent me. Now I have the money, and they still don't want to represent me because of who he's dealing with and what they've already set up. I'm so far behind the 8 ball, I've been told, that for them, they don't want to take it on because it's humiliating. But they don't have much of a chance. I'm better off to go on my own, they say. Well, I didn't go to school for anything with the law or anything to do with that. For me, it's overwhelming, and it would hardly be fair. Not even a bad lawyer would be able to stand up to her. And certainly a non-lawyer would be impossible. So I feel Wednesday I'm basically putting my head in the chopping block because his lawyer's going to run the show as she's done in the past. And hopefully the judge will be fair. But I don't know. At this point, I've lost everything. All I have is, hope that things will be better, but I don't have anything physically, materially to lose. My kids are taken away, my house, I have no money, and yeah.
So maybe there are protective mothers out there who are watching the show right now who are familiar with Georgia family court system and the rules of court in your particular county who can help. If so, I would suggest they contact you via Facebook and help you write motions. We need to be there for each other. I'm sitting here in the Netherlands learning California law. I hope that policymakers are watching this show to see in what outrageous situations we are in. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm learning about California law. I'm in the Netherlands. What the hell's going on over there in the United States in this family court nonsense? It's a circus. It's a scam. We all know it, and it needs to stop. As far as I'm concerned, the family court needs to be abolished. This type of child abuse that's been inflicted on your children needs to be handled in criminal court. Your ex should be going to jail for human rights violations and maternal deprivation.
Gross amounts of perjury in court that were never stopped.
Perjury, false allegations, hearsay, stealing your children, is judicial kidnapping. I mean, the list is long. A civil rights attorney could go to town with your case as well. It doesn't have to be a family law attorney.
Domestic violence by proxy. There's so many different angles to take on this. I just need a lawyer to take one of those angles. Maternal deprivation.
Yeah. So, I'm hoping that law students are watching the show. Again, like brainstorming in the direction of writing grants, getting money for cases like ours. It is going to happen. It's going to take some time, but there's lots of stuff going on in the background to get moms like you and me the help that we need. And there are organizations out there that can help, but they are small organizations that take on case by case. And there's 2 million of us. So how do you compete in all those thousands of moms who are approaching the attorneys? I don't know how many emails I wrote to attorneys. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and this is why it's important to create the publicity around your case, because my case is known all over the world now, right? So, and then it becomes interesting for one of these organizations to take on your case, because they're like, okay, well, this mom is really, going out there and pushing, fighting, and that's what they want, because then you're doing it together, right? And you're raising awareness.
Ahead to begin to fight back, but yeah, if I don't have anybody at that side, all I could do is stand here and keep taking the punches and the punches and the punches.
Well, the way you're fighting...
It just costs the taxpayer money. That's
yes.
The other thing that bothers me. You're the taxpayers paying for all this, for me being in jail, for having police come pick me up to take me to jail, for everything. It's costing that. It's just no different than working for Walmart. It's like him shuffling off the responsibility instead of just doing, I get visitation, he gets visitation, and doing a fair split of his money that he's obviously hidden. And now it ends up costing the taxpayer money.
Well, let's look at that. And I'll share my screen here because I just had a post about this. This is from the East Bay Times. It's an article about how much money is being made in the California court system, and I'm sure it's similar in Georgia. 15,000 employees making a total of $1 billion in salaries a year. All right, people, this is the scam that's unfolding. And other information I have is that an average of $100,000 per mom, per protective mother, is ripped off. It is a giant scam. It's a financial kids for cash scheme, and it needs to stop. I don't know how the elections are going to go down in the United States. I am praying for you all, and we all are here in Europe. I don't know what's going to happen, but we all hope that somehow, some way, the family court system will be completely abolished. We also
be amended. There needs to be, ERA is a wonderful thing. They have their focus at the moment. It's not on mothers' rights. I wish it would get back there because of situations like ours.
Yeah.
And
going back to the start of our interview, emotional and psychological abuse need to be criminalized, as they should, and jury trials, criminal courts for child abuse and maternal deprivation. Those are ideas that I have. Not everyone agrees with that, and that's okay. We're just throwing ideas out there to get the policymakers and the hopefully soon to be elected folks that are actually going to make a change to think about these issues and step in, because it needs to stop, and it needs to stop as soon as possible. I hope this show will contribute to you getting an attorney, getting a group of protective mothers who are experts in pro se litigation to help you. Yeah. I am going to hope that thousands of moms all across the world are going to sending the email out for your court watch and stop this insanity. The world is watching your case. You got the attention now. And ultimately, what really is important is that your children get a chance to watch this show, I hope you can get the link to the recording out to them somehow, and I can help you with that if necessary. And for them, again, to think for themselves and to seek you and contact with you, and for the healing to begin. And, you know, I wish healing on your ex-husband too, although there's, like I said, there's not much chance for individuals like him. But ultimately, you know, let's pray for all of these types of tragedies to stop occurring, you know. So much grief, unnecessary grief. Again, I think you're very brave for sharing your story, for coming on. I'm giving you a virtual hug from the Netherlands.
Hug back.
So thank you.
Okay.
And thanks to all the viewers for watching another episode of Hell's for Children. And I look forward to having you on and watching the show with me again next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.